What's up, everybody? Shawn here with another live to roll. We're back with another great episode for you. Very educational. Should be a really, actually, I think a fun topic to talk about. But we'll get into some intros. Me and Tom can introduce ourselves, and then we'll let these nice people introduce themselves. So I'm Shawn. I'm a C5, C6 quadriplegic from a snowboarding accident 20 years ago now. And Tom, go ahead.
I'm Tom Conaway, C6B quadriplegic for the last 27 years from an automobile injury. And yeah, coming at you from sunny, hot Southern California today. And super excited to talk about a topic that I'm very passionate about and I'm always excited to learn and know more about. And we got some awesome folks here to talk to us today. So, Benjamin, Callum, Annie, do you guys mind going through and introducing yourself and telling us a little bit about what you do? Then we get started with you, Benjamin.
Annie, do you want to kick it off?
Yes, and my name's Annie Dunham. I have been working at Nye Sterling, Hale Miller and Sweet for the last 5 years, and I'm essentially the person who handles all of our clients and I'm a legal assistant, but I assist Ben and Callum mostly with anything that has to do with our clients. Yeah, it's a really, really meaningful job. I love it.
Awesome, awesome.
All right, I'm Callum Appleby. I'm an associate attorney for Nice Sterling, Hale Miller and Sweet. I joined the firm about 5 years ago as well, straight out of law school, and I've been here ever since. And I work on these matters, the ADA clients. Obviously, prefer that we don't have those issues, but that's something that we have to work on. So,
Yes, sir.
Hi, Shawn. Hi, Tom. My name is Benjamin Sweet, and I'm a senior partner in the firm. And I've been working on civil rights matters, disability rights matters for about 10 years now. So really excited to be here today to talk to you all and to discuss the law a little bit. It's a complex but exciting area. So we're excited to talk a little bit more about it.
It's
Yeah, no, we're
definitely an interesting, exciting topic. Go ahead, Sean. I didn't mean
I was
to
gonna say no.
talk.
We're just really happy to have you guys here and to ask, yeah, to get some of your knowledge and get some of that great information. So thank you guys. Go ahead, Tommy.
And disability rights, civil rights, ADA issues, it's something that nobody with a disability ever wants to run across. It can be difficult when you do run across issues surrounding that. And it can be a difficult, complex matter to address, to understand, but a super, super important one, and one that doesn't just affect us individually, but kind of generally can have a broader impact on the larger disability community. And it's a topic that has become more topical in the last few decades, thankfully. And there's been a lot more awareness, a lot more laws that are being written to help protect our rights and stuff. But we were talking about this just a moment before we went live, Benjamin, is understanding and being educated on our rights is still hard to navigate. It's like, where do we necessarily look? I've done a lot of Googling, but it can be a lot of overwhelming information. So, can you guys maybe just speak to us a little bit about our rights generally, how we can maybe learn about those more specifically if we are encountering issues or have questions?
Sure. There's a number of resources that are available. I think one of the challenges in this entire area is just kind of understanding what law applies in what context, right? And oftentimes that will be driven by where you are. So, for example, if you are in any public place, any public accommodation, whether you are at the movie theater or you're at a sporting event or maybe you're in the hospital, all of those public places are going to be governed by the ADA. And the ADA is a far-reaching, what's called an injunctive relief statute, federal injunctive relief statute, which means that when you encounter barriers that are unlawful, you can bring a lawsuit under the ADA, and that lawsuit will, hopefully, if you're successful, will cause those barriers to be removed. And that is what the power of the ADA is. What the ADA does not do, however, which is important to understand, it's not a damages law. You don't sue under the ADA because you're going after a pile of money. That's just not what the ADA does. It's limited that way. And so that there's a big debate about that, whether that's a good thing or a bad thing. If you look at a place like the state of California, where you guys are, there are state laws where violations of the ADA, would obviously be actionable in federal court, but there's also a California state law called the California Unruh Act, which allows you to sue for damages on top of the ADA violation. So I think the first thing is just sort of knowing what law applies and where you are is the first step, right? And then depending on what law applies, then you have certain rights that are afforded to you under that, whether it be a federal law or a state law.
So, for example, and I'm not sure, I know you guys said you have an office here in California. If you aren't super familiar on exact specifics or anything, that's fine. I'm just asking very generally. Let's say, just for example, though, I'm going out to eat and I do it at a restaurant with my friends. I go to use the bathroom and the width of the door is 22 inches or something. And it's, like way smaller than what I can fit or manage.
Yeah.
So I can't use the bathroom. It's not accessible. I have to figure out going next door, going home, going out in my car, going out on the sidewalk, whatever I got to do, right? What would I do in an instance like that? Speak to the business owner first, or are there steps to take with an ADA person before you'd even do something like that?
Yeah, great question. And, I'm sure a situation that a lot of your viewers have run into in the past, where you go to a public accommodation, could be a restaurant, could be movie theater, library, whatever, and you can't even get into the bathroom. I mean, we just had a case recently, Callum and I litigated, involving a skilled nursing facility. And we found out during the course of that litigation that 75% of the folks that were in the facility were in wheelchairs. Well, lo and behold, they had 62 patient rooms, and guess how many were accessible for wheelchairs? Zero.
Wow.
Zero. So, yeah, folks were wheeling out into the hallway and going into the visitor restrooms in public areas. And these were residents of the facility, and this was taking place here in America in 2024. Now that's an extreme situation. You would hope that you don't have a situation like that, but these situations do occur. Our view is always, to answer your question, Tom, directly. Our view is always to try and deal with folks in a collaborative fashion initially, at least. Something like a bathroom, though, they're not going to be able to fix that overnight, right?
Yeah.
And the ADA, there's no sort of cure provision under the ADA where you're required to make a complaint and then file a lawsuit. The way the ADA works is you have to file a lawsuit. And so when it comes to really rampant lack of accommodation, like you're discussing, really the only remedy is to bring a lawsuit and to try to get, assuming a demand letter or a request does not work, which they rarely do, unfortunately. And then your only remedy is to bring a lawsuit to try to get that facility fixed.
And just jumping in on that, look, obviously it would be more than ideal if you could go to these business owners and say, I've had this issue, and they turn around and say, absolutely, you're right, we'll fix it for you. Unfortunately, that's not the case. And then for some of these facilities, there is a little defense mechanism for the ADA for these facilities, which is there's two sort of provisions, and it's fundamental alteration and undue burden. And so for smaller places, you're talking a bathroom there, a door width, that's very rarely going to fall under those. But when you're asking a business to do a grand overhaul, and they might be not very profitable, at that point there is a provision for them that they don't have to go out and fix everything, or they do, but they can do it in a step-by-step basis as they get their money through. But in terms of a bathroom and a door width, that should always be very easily fixed and not have a lot of money towards it. And so you would hope that the business owners at that point would do something. Unfortunately, that doesn't seem to be the case. And as Ben said there, what we try and do first is take a very informal approach to it. We're at the end of the day, our goal is to get these things fixed. and that would be the first goal. When that doesn't happen, then the only way to enforce the ADA is through that lawsuit.
My advice to other individuals with disabilities who encounter issues like this is always to lead with kindness and consideration. When you are dealing with an accessibility issue, particularly concerning like the bathroom or something, it can feel personal. It can feel personal sometimes. It can feel like embarrassing. It can be very difficult, especially if you're out with your friends, if you're out with a significant other, if you're on a date or something. Like there's an infinite number of situations that could make you feel kind of impacted personally by whatever this accessibility issue is. But getting upset and raising a stink and being rude is never, ever, 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 I think, the route to go, unless you lead with kindness and then they counter back with, impatience and rudeness and, not being considerate of you. Then it's, I think, okay to maybe get a little bit more upset or, like to not lead so much with kindness and be like, hey, we'll leave this here. I'm going to take my business somewhere else, and I'll contact an ADA lawyer to get in touch with you guys in terms of addressing this issue. But I always, always, like I said, you'd be surprised how often the lengths people are willing to go to accommodate you, or maybe there's a bathroom in the back that is accessible that's maybe not accessible to customers and stuff. I've encountered a ton of situations where I just went up to the owner, the person working in the restaurant, and like, or whatever it is, and just explain my situation. And 9 times out of 10, they'll work to try to accommodate me, and then I'm happy, they're happy, everyone's happy. And you can even suggest, like, hey, maybe put a sign out. Maybe if, let the next person in a wheelchair know that if they need this particular accommodation, we're capable of it. But, like, make it known or something. And that is where I think you can step in and help educate and be like a positive force in change for stuff like this. But also, if you do have to go the lawyer route, contact someone. I've kind of felt guilty or weird like about that too. It's like, ugh, I don't want to sue a business. I don't want to file a lawsuit. I don't want them to feel this stress and this burden. But really, what you're doing is you're bringing about a change that isn't just going to benefit you, but benefit everybody with the disability who, in the future, who's going to go into this business or establishment and encounter what you just did. And in that case, like, I think it is okay, and I think it's positive and meaningful. But it's your job to make that experience that way, I think, rather than going up in arms against a business owner or something, unless they're really being difficult.
Yeah, it's personal. Like I feel like you just have to keep it. Like if the kindness doesn't work, and which I don't think they probably will make large changes with that, but I feel like mentioning, okay, thank you, I'm going to contact my ADA lawyer. Like I feel like that's just the best way to go. And then Leon, real quick, I just want to say from the chat, had asked earlier if ADA laws apply everywhere in the U.S. and ADA laws are federal, but like Benjamin was saying, some states have other laws as well enacted. So
Right.
Yeah, so the ADA would be it would be your baseline for what your rights are if you're an American citizen. So if you're anywhere in the United States and you're finding inaccessible conditions, then you do have a remedy under the ADA. You might have some additional legal rights as well, depending on where you live.
This is something that's kind of personally affected me, and again, I don't know how specific laws are state to state. Residential accessibility has been a big issue for me. I have an apartment in LA, one of the nicest, most expensive places in the world, and I, pay a lot of money for my little box, which I love. It's cozy, it's cool. In the years past, though, it's accessible only in that like I live on the first floor. There's 3 floors to my buildings. None of those are accessible. Some of the areas in which amenities for the residents are not accessible, and the doors at the end of the hallway are kind of heavy and a little difficult to use. I've gotten really good at using them over the years, but a few years ago, the building management changed, and I requested with the new management. I just made myself known. I was like, "Hey, they were remodeling some of the rooms around me." I was like, "I've got a couple accessibility concerns that are just posing a difficulty for me in my like everyday in and out life. And while you're doing this work, is it possible to get any of these changes done? And at first they said, yeah, heck yeah, no problem. Like, we'll work with you. They went around with me. They asked questions, wrote down my concerns. And then a couple weeks later, they came back and said, we're only willing to do the changes. We will allow you to make the changes, but all of them costs have to come out of your own pocket. Meaning, like, they they were mandated to allow me to make accessible accommodations, but they had no responsibility in covering the cost of those changes. Do you guys have any familiarity with residential law when it comes to like accessibility and any experience with that?
Yeah. So in the context of multi-unit dwelling like that, Tom, you would have protections under the Fair Housing Act and the Fair Housing Amendments Act, which have a lot of the same specific regulations that you're familiar with from the ADA. There are some key differences, and we'd have to get probably not a good forum today to get into the specifics of that for your case, but we could of course talk offline about it. But in general, they have to be accessible. There's just no question about it. And most of the regulations that would apply to an ADA sort of public accommodation would apply to federal housing as well. Any housing unit you would be.
Okay, yeah, that's interesting, and it's good to know. And I think I may ask you a few questions offline about it. I don't want to make this whole discussion about that, but and again, I'm semi comfortable in my dwelling, at least in that, like, I wish it was a little easier for me to get in and out. At the time, there was another individual in a chair living on my floor too, which I saw her have difficulty getting in and out, and I was like, just seems kind of crazy to me that there's more than one individual with disability and they're willing to rent to us. I don't know why would it?
One of the situations we run into all the time, we hear from our clients all the time. It might be in the context of housing, and it could be in the context of healthcare, especially. We hear a lot about this in healthcare. Is when you're the person living with a disability and you're trying to access your healthcare, you have to make this difficult choice. Like, do I want to make a big stink about this and kind of like bite the hand that feeds, right? The folks that are helping me and giving me this healthcare. And I want to be the person that's perceived as being, malcontent, and you're constantly having that push-pull conversation in your head. And so we're familiar with that tension, and we're aware of it. So, I think it depends on how severe the inaccessibility is. I think in the real world, right, there's more of a decision to be made there. It's not so black and white. It's so simple.
Yeah.
Everyday life. Yeah.
And then to sort of go off of that tension, that's kind of why we're here. That's why we're doing what we're doing at the moment. Annie speaks with our clients all day, every day. Talk to Annie. Annie, you're going to want to talk to her for hours on end. She's amazing. One of the things that we really want to do is we want to educate and avoid that tension of, do I need to get the accessibility now at the cost of my hair, at the healthcare, or that tension shouldn't be there. So what we're trying to do is get out ahead of that. At the time that you go into a doctor's office for a routine checkup and there are no issues, checking in with your healthcare provider, do you have an accessible transfer equipment? Do you have accessible exam tables? Do you have these things that you can do? Because, for maybe 99% of the time, you might be able to transfer yourself. But that one time that you can't transfer yourself and you need that transfer equipment, and then you find out they don't have the transfer equipment, that's the one time that tension comes up. And we want to make sure that doesn't happen. And you're having these conversations with the doctors in advance of that, so that we can avoid exactly that tension that Ben's talking about.
I just encountered something, and again, they're super accommodating, and we're just figuring it out. But I have a dentist that I use regularly. My chair reclines, and normally when they do my cleanings, like, able to just recline my chair in such a way. They have a little mobile cleaning station they can bring over, and it's all good. I feel like they do just as good a job as any able-bodied person is able to lay in the dentist chair. But I have to get a filling replaced, and I'm like, not really feeling super comfortable in how they normally work on my teeth. And that question came up. I'm like, do they have an accessible bed? Do they have an accessible room? And when I called them, they're like, oh, well, how do we normally accommodate you? Like, don't we work on you from your chair? And my question is, well, it's like, yes, but I think in
Yeah.
this instance, it's like more significant work. Like, I want it to be done right. I don't want anything to be done, halfway or, kind of in a non-normal situation because I don't want to end up with any issues. They've been accommodating, and my plan is to go with someone who can just help me transfer onto the bed. Like, I went in there and I scoped out a room that my chair could fit into and get close enough to the bed to make the transfer easy and stuff. And they've been super accommodating. But I bring this up because I hear about this a lot with individuals with disabilities that don't go to the dentist because their dentist office isn't accessible, and because they've
Yes.
gone on and had one bad experience where they weren't accommodated or they encountered staff that didn't know how to accommodate an individual. And this is why I think it's really important to stand up because I don't know, Jeanette made a comment a few minutes ago. It has been 32 years since the ADA has been in effect, and a lot of businesses, you know, still, I mean, they've encountered individuals with disabilities before, and if they haven't made necessary accommodations or accessibility changes, then they should be held accountable because going to the dentist should be the same experience for you as anybody else. And I think very seldom it is.
Yeah,
Yeah, I
Tom,
mean,
you're raising such an important point, and it's a really timely one, and that is the access to medical facilities. And Callum is going to speak a bit about this, but there's been some developments in that area just recently that have sort of solidified into law what your rights are with respect to being transferred, the use of transfer equipment. That is now a federal right under the Rehabilitation Act, 1973. As of 2024, that is now a federal right. So you are entitled when you go to not only would it be nice, you're entitled under federal law now when you go to the dentist or to the doctor that you'll be given medical diagnostic equipment that's accessible, that you'll be dealt with by personnel that are adequately trained to perform the transfer and actually transferred. So it is not acceptable from a legal standpoint. I'm speaking. It is not acceptable that they would assume that you will want to be treated in your chair. That is not acceptable treatment in 2024. So just so you're aware of that.
Good to know. Thank you. I do appreciate that. And
what's
I think it also reflects too on like optometrist places, physical therapy, institute, like, places and stuff. There's so many places
Yes.
where I've gone to receive services that have little to no accommodations at all, or just what you said. They operate under an assumption that my I'm going to be satisfied with a non-traditional experience that they give to everyone with an able body.
Yeah. Yeah. And all of those contexts that you just listed, Tom, you are federally entitled to accommodations in all of those instances. And I think I just saw a comment from a client of mine, Barb Zablotny. Hi, Barb. Uh, accessible accessible scales are also now required under federal law, and that's an important thing for a lot of folks with mobility disabilities. A lot of folks haven't had a real weight taken in 5 years, and they don't know if the medication is affecting their weight. Whether they're gaining weight or losing weight. Um, you're entitled to that. And it's important to your healthcare. So those are the type of areas that we want folks to be armed with the information, and then just vocal in a polite and kind and forward way, but certainly very vocal and assertive in those contexts.
Yes, and again, I think it's really important how you communicate this, but you're not being difficult by communicating this. In fact, you're doing the business a favor. You're doing your community a service by helping facilitate a change that will have a broader effect on everybody that's going to use it in the future.
Caleb,
Um,
can I add
It's,
something?
it's a lot more compassionate care. And I think we all want this in our healthcare and how we, access our healthcare providers. We want that relationship. We do that here. You do this, on your podcast. It's just how it needs to be done.
Yeah.
Definitely. And Caleb, were you going to say something, add something after Benjamin earlier? I don't know if you were starting to talk.
Yeah. So thank you. So well, firstly, we saw Barb there, and Barb actually said something to in one of in the case that she had that was I think was very telling about this, the whole situation. She said that she was sat in the hospital one day and she realized that she didn't have to put up with this care. And it wasn't just that she had to put up with this care, it was that she saw a couple of younger women coming into the hospital in wheelchairs too. And then she realized that, it wasn't just her. Everybody's going through what she was being put through, and she had a chance to step up and stop it, and she did. But going to that Rehabilitation Act, there was something in the ADA they released a while ago, and this was the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services and the Access Board. They released guidance on what your rights are in healthcare. And it's funny, Tom, that you brought up being treated in your chair, because you only have to get to the second page of the guidance to see a commonly asked question, which is, can I be treated in my chair? And they say, you can, that's fine, of course. But it is also your right to be transferred over to and get the proper care that you need. And sometimes that is, like you said, for the most part, it's convenient, sure, when you're getting something small done, not to go through the exercise. But it's also important to stand up and go through the exercise and exercise your rights for that. It's just as important for you to get the care that you deserve from these places. Anyway, so get back to the Rehabilitation Act. What this did was it largely mirrored the guidance, and so it effectively put it into practice. However, it limited it in some respects. It didn't follow it word for word, but there are some very key areas that it did make sure that it covered. And that was diagnostic equipment, as Ben said, exam tables, accessible exam tables, and as we saw Barb's comment, accessible weight scales. They identified those three very specifically to be included and mandated that these facilities get them. I thought it was very interesting. It came out, I should say, July 8th, 2024, and became active as of that. So now, whereas before we had the general discrimination guidelines of the Rehabilitation Act of the ADA, we have something in very black and white that says, no, you are required to do this now. And so that guidance has a bit more power, has some teeth to it. So we're excited for that.
Is there any regulatory agency surrounding this? Like, is there a mandate that medical facilities have so many months or so many years to make these changes, and a regulatory agency that will go around and check and make sure? Or is it up to us as citizens and individuals with disabilities to make those issues known in a petition?
Such a great question. And, the answer is yes, it is up to everyone to make, are there resources that are available? Absolutely. There are resources to learn what your rights are, but it is up to each individual who's living with a disability to assert those rights, to make sure that they're being expanded broadly, across the board. And these are new, as Callum says, black and white rights that you have. If you're suffering from a mobility disability and you go to access your healthcare, these are your rights. So, you're not asking for something that not every other person who's not coming into the facility with the use of a wheelchair is already getting. You're just asking for the same treatment as everyone else. And now there is a little bit of teeth behind that, which is, I think, helpful to the cause.
That's great to know. It's nice that there's paperwork and laws and things written down that you can reference and communicate, because that's what I've felt it's very difficult sometimes when you don't feel like you have the rhetoric or the information in your back pockets necessarily. Just communicate to them hey, these are my rights, you're just infringing upon my rights, let's just figure this out. And instead of constantly having to fight with them. Now, you guys brought up healthcare. SNFs, skilled nursing facilities, and home health agencies are two of the biggest things I hear the most horror stories about. I've encountered a lot of horror there myself, not so much in the skilled nursing facilities, but dealing with home health agencies. And a lot of it is what Annie brought up a moment ago, is just lack of compassion It's like very much your name, a number, a dollar sign, and that's about it. They want to get in and out as quick as possible. They don't want to accommodate your times. They don't want to accommodate your comfort. They don't want to accommodate you compassionately, and they just want to provide the base service. Um, I think everyone has a certain responsibility to advocate for themselves and to represent for themselves. We have to have our own voice and we have to speak up and we have to say when something's wrong. But what is your guys' experience with these institutions? Is there laws and protections in that? Like, I know there's kind of a big gray area when it comes to healthcare needs and it's so individual and stuff. But what what do you guys know about that? Can you educate me maybe on that a little bit?
Callum, you want to take that one?
Yeah, I mean, we've had a lot of experience with it. Unfortunately, this is, as I said at the start, this is something that we don't want to be doing. We don't want to be following up with these places and having to get accessibility. And I think, as Ben mentioned earlier, we had a skilled nursing facility that we've been litigating, and they didn't have a single accessible restroom in there. And they try to hide behind a lot of different things, but at the end of the day, it comes back to that compassion, right? You have these people who are in the most vulnerable situation that they've been in. When you're in a skilled nursing facility, rehabilitation facility, that is the exact time that you need that compassion that Annie's talking about, that care, and that's not the time that you need to be advocating for yourself or want to be advocating for yourself. You should be focused on getting better. And these Rehabilitation Act changes are a great thing for us. They're a great thing for the community. It's going to be something that we can point to, whereas the guidance before was great and the ADA had the generalized discrimination parts of it. This is very much something now that we can point to and say, no, like now there is something, and hopefully, put my optimist hat on here, that these places will do it by themselves, and we will never have to advocate for it. However, this seems unlikely, and when that time does come, there's plenty of resources out there for you. We are a resource for you, but we will also give you these other resources to read by yourself. Some of the more pointed ones that you can understand. That there's like you said at the start, there's so much interplay between these mostly 3-4 statutes, and they're difficult to comprehend. And what it does is boil down to the very very simple point of you should be given full and equal access to your healthcare, and that is important. And it is important how to obtain that access.
And not just healthcare, but a standard of care. There's a certain quality of life that every human has a right to. And I wish the world was a more progressive, better place because so many people do not receive that quality of life or any standard of care, let alone a little one. We are very lucky and fortunate to be here in the United States where the systems exist as they do. There's things like rehabilitation acts and stuff and conversations that are had, but it is really important to educate yourself and understand your rights too. And there's only one way to do that, and that's to kind of get your hands dirty a little bit too. It's great to know that there are awesome law firms and institutions like yourselves there where we can access resources and talk to you guys and help gain an understanding and help know where to look to learn the right information. But I do want to encourage anybody that does feel like that they're receiving below standard, quality of care, or if you're struggling and stuff, just understand your rights as a human being, and make sure to advocate and stand up for yourself. And you guys brought it up too. It's so difficult when you are dealing with rehabilitation, you're dealing with a chronic condition, you're dealing with your disability and complications that lie therein. It's hard to have a voice when you're dealing with all that. Sometimes it's impossible. Um, and it's important to ask for help and to know like, hey, this isn't right. Like I might not be able to talk and fight myself, but maybe there's some people that can talk and fight for me. And I just wanted to say that I feel like not everybody knows that or understands that. And at times I haven't even understood that until I realized I was being taken advantage of by the healthcare system and by my doctors and by these healthcare institutions. And, I had to fight and advocate to get what I had a right to.
Right.
It's an interesting point, Tom, because there are a lot of folks who are living with mobility disabilities who've never had accessible healthcare, so they really don't know what it is that they're entitled to and what good quality healthcare looks and feels like. And so, if you have questions, if any of your viewers have questions, we're always happy. We're a resource to help answer questions, whether you have a legal matter or not, or if you just want a question to be answered about whether it's some treatment you're receiving is acceptable or not. We're happy to be a sounding board for that.
I actually have two quick questions for you, or two things. Jeanette actually mentioned if you could, if there's a link to the new laws, like if there's somewhere that people can read it, and then I can make sure to add that to the description so everyone watching the video can check it out. And then also, Steve, I can give you the information. A friend of ours out here locally asked, he wanted to connect with you guys to discuss an issue him and his wife recently had. So just letting Steve know. I'm going to let you guys know. I just wanted to make sure that didn't get missed in the chat back there. So yeah, just wanted to address those.
Absolutely. We'll share those. We'll share some of the resources with you, Shawn, so you can post it. I think there's a chat thing over here, but I can't work out how to post it in that. So yeah, we'll send it to you and make sure that the resources are available.
Yeah, because if I put them in the description, that way it's easy. It'll just stay there. There'll be clickable links and anything that's good like that. So, thanks.
As litigators, as representatives of us when it comes to these things and these laws, how do you guys feel about it? How do you guys feel about the ADA? Do you feel like it is meaningful? Do you feel like meaningful progress is being made to address necessary changes in the laws to better represent everybody? And just personally, how's your experience been? Is it positive? Is it demoralizing? Is it,
No.
like, does it light the fire in you? Like, I'm just kind of curious, like personally, if you don't mind.
Well, Tom, thank you for asking, first of all, because I know Annie and Tom, they're smirking because they've heard my speech before about this. My personal view of the ADA is that it was a good start, and I'm glad that the community got the good start, but that there needs to be stronger laws to protect folks and laws that are going to be scary to businesses. Because what I see in my experience doing this work for quite a long time is I see businesses treating these laws and regulations like suggestions, not requirements. And until folks are actually ready to, step into the courtroom, they're really not taking their obligations seriously enough. Now, there are exceptions. There are some companies that do a wonderful job, and we should acknowledge that. There are some companies that really go above and beyond, and I can think of a few right off the top of my head. But the vast majority, unfortunately, if they can get away with it, save a few dollars in the process, they're not going to do everything they need to be doing. And, as I said, there's no provision under the ADA for you to make a complaint. You can't just say, hey, oh, please do this. And they're required to take it seriously. The only way, the only mechanism under that law, and, other laws are different. There are mechanisms under other laws that would allow you to sort of ping, a corporate actor and get them to react. In the ADA, the only way to do it is to bring an action. Unfortunately, if the business isn't willing to make the change willingly. So I think I'm being more political about it. I don't love the ADA that much anymore because I think it's sort of outgrown its usefulness in many respects. But I have to acknowledge that it was a massive step forward when it was passed, 34 years ago now.
Totally. So much has changed in that time, and yeah, it's really important that things catch up. And we did have a question, Andrew. I know you're from across the pond over the EU. I'm not sure is the protections that they have over there concerning accessibility and rights surrounding healthcare and stuff. But yeah, it's the American Disabilities Act, and it's laws here in the U.S. that are meant to protect our rights as individuals with disabilities. And yeah, so I'd be curious.
Yeah, I saw his other comment pop up actually too, and that the accessibility over there is a lot worse. And you can probably tell I'm from England originally, and I go back a lot, and I get to see, as Ben said, that ADA is a good start, but it has made some incredible changes, and as a whole, I would say America is a lot more accessible than what I see when I'm over in England, and that's a great thing. But there's always more, right? Until that there is that full and equal access, until there is the same rights afforded to able-bodied people, then it's always going to be not enough.
Yeah, it's something I think about often is kind of the global issues that we still have to address. I mean, there's so much that, and we're already so fortunate and so lucky that the infrastructure here exists in the way that it does. As difficult as it might seem at times, there's so many parts of the world where nothing exists in the way of regulatory agency or representation or laws or anything. And it the first domino has to fall. We're knocking over a bunch of them, but hopefully it just starts a movement and a conversation that doesn't stop here and doesn't ever stop, in the way of accommodating everybody. And I don't know, I'm like no fool in like thinking that infrastructure has to change tomorrow. It took 100+ years to build up, a lot of the infrastructure that we have today and use and utilize still. But um, it is so paramount and important to make whatever changes we can right now, because that's the only way meaningful change is going to come about for everyone, is if we set a standard now and hold people accountable for it.
Right.
And
Shawn, did you have anything to ask
um,
specifically, Chris?
well, you actually asked the one I wanted to make sure we did talk about the new law that was enacted about the healthcare system, the Healthcare Act law. That was the big one I wanted to make sure we did talk about. We got in here because I know we had talked about that on the phone when we spoke before. So yeah, that was the main one. And then, is there anything else new or that can be helping? Anything else that people want to know about, or anything you guys are working on that you would like to share?
Yeah, I think our big focus, honestly, Shawn, recently, and I would say the last 3 years, has just been on access to healthcare, because we see it as so critical. The folks we represent are using healthcare more than other folks are using it just on average, and I think it's just so important. We hear so many stories about bad experiences, inaccessible experiences, and we see that as an area, particularly in these larger. One of the things that we do as a law firm makes us a little bit different is we do class action cases. So we don't just do, Shawn goes to his doctor and it's inaccessible and Shawn has a problem and we have to do something about that. Those cases are important, but like what really makes an impact is a class action case where, it's Tom and it's Shawn and I together and we're doing a class on behalf of all people in wheelchairs. And we're trying to get change across the whole country, in terms of the accommodations. Those types of cases are where we're focused. We've done a number of them over the last 5-6 years, but we're interested in systemic changes across the health system to make it more accessible.
So that's more what you guys do then versus individual lawsuits against maybe smaller businesses and things that
We,
may
we,
be accessible.
we do them both, Shawn. Honestly, we do them both, but like in the right case, it has to be the right facts for a class action to take hold. But I'll give you one example. We did a class action case actually out of California in Los Angeles where we brought the case. And we represent in that case the American Council of the Blind. And the case involved Quest Diagnostics, the testing lab. And Quest decided to, in 2016, roll out a bunch of automated kiosks across the country. They had more than
Yeah,
2,000 locations. And all of those kiosks were inaccessible for blind people, like every single one. And then, we had a pandemic hit, right? And so imagine you're blind, you're in a pandemic, and you're using paratransit to get to the Quest to get your blood draw taken, and you can't get service. There's no one there to greet you. You don't even know that there is a kiosk. There's no communication of any kind, and you're scared to death because you're afraid of getting this bug. and that was the reality. So we took that case as a class action. We litigated it for 4 years. We took it to trial a year and a half ago, and we won at trial. And now that case is on appeal, but that's the kind of case we for healthcare. Now that's not a mobility disabled case, but it was an important healthcare case, we think.
No, that's very important. That's accessibility for all. That's yeah.
Yeah, and technology becomes more and more part of the conversation, right? We have to make sure that technology is working for everyone.
Right. And those kiosks, honestly, even for a quad, I don't know if Tom, those things are a pain. But if you're by yourself trying to get checked in on one of those things,
and there are rules that there are reach range rules and everything else that affect folks who are in chairs. And so, we had another case, guys, that against FedEx. You might be familiar with the fact that FedEx has these drop boxes now. They have like 34,000 drop boxes all across the country. Well, they hired a company that put in drop boxes that had pressures that were well in excess of the required pressure score. Right? It's only 5 pounds is allowed, and they were all 9.5, 10, 11 pounds of pressure. And so folks were having a hard time getting the things open all across the country. They used the same box everywhere, 34,000 of them. And then to make matters worse, those boxes also violated the reach range. They were too high. So not only could you not pull it because it was too heavy, but it was too high. Well, we brought that as a class action, and I'm happy to say that FedEx has agreed to fix all of their drop boxes, all 34,000 across the country.
That's amazing and super enjoying. I mean, I feel like I could stay here forever and tell you all about experiences like that I've had that I just like write off as like, well, that's just life, that's like shitty, but I'll just ask somebody for help, like I've encountered that kiosk at Quest for like the last 4 or 5 years, and never once have I been able to meaningfully access it. I've always just had to ask an attendant to assist me or like take my information and put it in and stuff. And sometimes I feel like they do offer methods like I can do it through my phone. Now, I learned that now, and so I just do it before I show up. I check it on my phone. That's fully accessible for me. I can input my information, no problem. I can just do that and get there. But
it still doesn't it make you still check in on the kiosk? Because I did that before, and it still made me actually click that I was here.
Possibly. I mean, I always throw right up to the attendant too, and I'm just like, "Hey, I'm Tom Godway. I'm here." I don't really go to the kiosk. I just try to like engage with whatever personnel they have. But that's just one small example of many, many, many that we encounter. Yeah. As a disabled individual who's encountered accessibility issues in healthcare facilities, literally my entire life. It is super cool to hear about some individuals or a group of people that are here working and representing that specifically. I mostly hear about like public access issues and stuff like that, where like that it's restaurants and things like that. Not so much doctors' offices or hospitals or healthcare facilities, and that is just super, super cool to know that people are aware and they're working on it, and it's a conversation. And now there are new laws in effect that can help require facilities.
Yeah. Tom, the good news here, and I hope this isn't getting buried in our discussion, which has been, by the way, a great discussion. I really appreciate all the great questions. But the law's on your side. I mean, the laws are on our side, and maybe that message isn't getting out there, but it is. I mean, you don't have to grow up with your healthcare in America. You are entitled to it. And when it's not provided to you, you can take action and you will be victorious. You're not going to lose. They're going to either fix it or you're going to, or they're going to be made to fix it. But when you're seeing these kind of violations that are this rampant, like ones you guys have been talking about today, that's just across the line, and something has to be done about it. It is 34 years, as mentioned, all the first pass it. And plenty of time to get this thing right.
Totally. This is kind of one last issue I wanted to bring up or touch on as we kind of close out the hour here. Myself, Shawn, a lot of people here on Live to Roll and stuff, we like to travel. It's a conversation we have a lot in terms of like traveling accessibly, hotels, airplanes, trains, automobiles, whatever it might be. However you like to travel. It's all kind of crazy difficult process to navigate. That can be achieved with a lot of planning and stuff, but where I found myself struggling is I'm paying the same airplane price as everybody else flying. I'm buying the same train ticket as everybody else, but my experience is not the same as everybody else in that bathrooms are not accessible. The seat is much less comfortable than I think it would be for everybody else. The straps and the accommodations and the dignity that or the loss of dignity I have to suffer through the process of getting on and off of these things and, you know, showing up to a hotel in a different state and finding out they don't have an accessible accommodation for you and stuff. What if any laws are there surrounding that, or are you aware of changes that are being worked on? Do you guys deal in any of that, or have any knowledge or experience with that kind of stuff?
Yeah, I mean, every one of the contexts that you've described, whether it be an airplane, whether it be a train, whether it be a hotel, there is there is a law that covers those contexts. There's actually a specific federal law that covers airplanes and airports. That's outside of the ADA. It actually doesn't apply in those contexts, somewhat surprisingly. But you have rights with regard to whether accessible seating on the plane is required. I do not believe that there is a strict requirement for accessible seating on aircrafts in the U.S. I'd have to check on that, though, so I don't want to get ahead of myself on that. I don't believe there is a strict requirement under the current federal law. There is a push for it, though, as there should be. Certainly, hotels have to be accessible, and there are very strict requirements with respect to how many accessible rooms and then what the requirements are of those accessible rooms. There's an entire set of regulations that covers that, in terms of width of the doorway and the movable space on the inside and where fixtures are located and all those things have to meet very strict requirements. Where the grab bar is, how high it is, all those things are important in that context. And then trains have to be accessible as well, including the train stations, which is a huge problem. And there have been a lot of litigations. I know there was one in LA recently in the last maybe 5 to 6 years where all of the public sidewalks in Los Angeles have to be accessible now over a period of time. And I know that's been rolling out slowly because it's a huge case, but you have rights with respect to just the ability to go down the street and in your local town or wherever you are. That should all be accessible by now. I know it isn't, but it should be.
I was gonna say there's still my block is still on the waiting list. Apparently, I gotta double back sometimes to find a curb cut out that I can access or something like that. And slowly, like the changes.
I'm looking out my window right now here in Pittsburgh, and I'm looking at a curb cut right here, and they just put those in 2 years ago. And we live where our office is located is like a nice suburb, but they just put them in 30 something years after the ADA passed.
Wow.
Yeah.
And I always think everybody too to just be mindful of like what I said earlier. Infrastructure change takes time. If we're going to change everything so that everyone is accommodated, that it's going to take time because it was built the wrong way the first time, and it's just a lot to change and make accessible and upgrade and stuff. And that it sounds like there's no meaningful regulatory agencies set up at a federal or state level to help kind of checks and balances on this stuff. So that's where you have to be the person to raise your voice and contact your city, contact your local officials, do whatever due diligence you need to raise awareness to the issues. That's just what we got to do.
And contact your Annie too.
Yeah, we are just so grateful for the people that we represent and to have this conversation. It is so vitally important for us, for our society. I love this community because this is really where it happens. And I think that's where we're heading, into community more and more, because it's about belonging and about making change. Yeah.
That's
Great
to hear. That's amazing.
I have to think like I don't know. I think societally we should maybe judge ourselves based on how we take care of these kinds of individuals and stuff. The people that can't take care of themselves. I think it's really speaks societally how we handle this issue and how we address it, and raise awareness and educate and represent. It's really important that we hold a certain standard, and it's just super reassuring and makes me feel good personally to know that there are awesome people like yourselves on our team, on our side, that understand this issue and are here working on it alongside with us. So
Thank
just thank you again
We,
for
well,
all that
you both
you do, being here.
you both are doing, all of you, and your
Yeah,
other colleagues.
what a great
Just,
program this is, guys. I had
I
a
know,
chance
I
to
love this program.
watch a couple of your episodes, and it's really neat. I think it's wonderful what you're doing.
Thank you. Yeah, no, we're just trying to help and educate people as well. So we really do appreciate you guys coming and sharing a lot of that stuff, a lot of the new enacted laws and just what people's rights are. And I have your website in the description already. If people want to contact them, reach out, you can check out their website. But I will add the other links after the show for any like laws that you can like read into or anything you guys have to send over like that. So yeah, we
Perfect.
really do appreciate you guys and everything. And in the chat, I don't know if you guys are seeing all the chat. A lot of people are also saying thank you and I really appreciate this talk. And so yeah, we really really do appreciate it. Thank you guys.
Thank you so much.
We are probably, I think we'll mention our sponsors real quick and shout them out. Mention our shows. We usually wrap the show by asking our guests kind of like one wrap up question. I will ask this. One of you guys can answer it. All of y'all can answer it. And I'll give you a second to think about it. If you guys have any general advice for an individual that is feeling overwhelmed by the healthcare system, or maybe feel as if their rights are being violated or they're encountering accessibility issues. Kind of generally, what advice would you give to that individual as to maybe next steps to take? I know we've touched on it a little bit, but if you can maybe help kind of give a little summary of maybe a good route that an individual could take, I'd really appreciate that. And Shawn, do you want to just do the sponsors real quick and the shows? We'll
Yeah,
wrap up here.
I'm gonna do something real quick because because I had to create this one on its own here. I'm going to just take myself out of this and put the other one on that I have all the sponsor banners on and everything. So let me just kind of adjust here real quick.
I can
And
shout
then
everything out too if you want me
if
to
you
shout
want
it
to
out as
start,
you
if you
go.
want to start shouting out a few things going with the sponsors, that is great. And then I will switch over to this right now. I got it just about
Okay.
set up. There we go.
Shout out mobility professionals and urology professionals. Thank you guys for helping take care of us. If you're lucky enough to be here in beautiful, sunny Southern California, Mobility Professionals is an awesome DME company that can help you with your wheelchairs, help you with other similar related medical equipment like shower chairs, lifts, and the like. They are very representative of our community. They will work with you and your insurance to get what you need to you to little as no cost as possible, and help you understand the equipment that you need and getting the right stuff the first time. So give them a shout out if you find yourself in need. Also, their sister company, Urology Professionals, is a national company, so anywhere in the US of A. If you find yourself needing access to catheter supplies or any similar urological supplies, they're it. They're your one stop shop. Similarly, they are very representative of our community. They understand our needs, and they take a lot of the work over in terms of communicating with your insurance and figuring out the tough stuff that's hard to understand. So give them a shout if you are in need of anything like that. And we appreciate you sponsoring Lift to Roll. Help and support us. We love you guys.
Yes, we very much.
Tomorrow we got gaming with T Fizzle. I know I've been on a little bit of sabbatical. I've just been going through some stuff. But hey, if you want to come and hang out, do some gaming, it's a great chance to just ask questions and have a good conversation outside of the normal show. There's no agenda generally. We're just talking and gaming and hanging out. But especially if you want a game, come and join us and hop online, and we'll have a lot of fun together. Thursday, what do we got coming up, Shawn?
Whoops! This Thursday is rolling with the golden oldies. Actually, we have the ladies. It's women's aging with a disability show. So the ladies all have a lot of life experiences, and they are talking travel actually this month or this week. So I know Ellen just got back from Greece, and I know Julianne travels a lot for the Abilities Expos. So yeah, we're just looking forward to hearing all their experience and knowledge on that. Whoops. And then, yeah, the following week, Bobby will be back. He had to miss today, but Bobby, Robert, and Luis will be on for another Rolling Over the Hill, which was our first just Aging with a Disability show. A lot of the guys talking about, I'm not sure what their subject is this time, but they always have fun guests that have a lot of experience and like talk about a lot of really important things. And then, not to leave any of the Thursday shows out, we also have Real Girl Talk the following Thursday. So make sure to check that out with Brianna and the ladies. And those are always just fun kind of hangout topics. And they're always happy to answer any questions in the chat. So make sure to engage in all the shows. And then we got Monday, Hell Wheels. Hopefully, Thrall will be feeling better and healthy and able to do it. He's been having a lot of health issues, so he hasn't been able to, but we're hoping he'll be back on Monday. Tom will be back Wednesdays, and we'll be back on next Tuesday. Me, Tom, and Bobby, and we have another good guest, and it'll be a fun show for you guys. So look forward to talking again next week.
Non-stop content here on Live to Roll. Make sure you don't miss any of it. If you haven't subscribed, please do. If you want to subscribe, you hit that little notification bell next to the subscription button, and it'll actually notify you when we do go live and of our upcoming shows and stuff. If you feel so inclined, no pressure. We're about to crack that 14,000 subscriber mark, so if you want to be a part of helping us get there, we'd appreciate it. And yeah, now let's wrap it up. Like I said, just to remind you guys, any general advice for an individual maybe facing an ADA issue? What do you got for them? Where do you think they should go? Again, I know it's a very broad question, but
I would say use your voice, Tom. Use your voice.
I love it. I love it. That's my advice too. Callum?
Mine would be just simple. Education is power. That's how we make change.
And Annie?
Know that people have your back. That there is, basically know that people have your back.
And that's super reassuring to know, and really reassuring to hear. I know personally how lonely it can feel when you're struggling and you're facing what feels like impossible problems to solve, and ones that are affecting your health and your access and your human rights. They can be really, really tough and can be very isolating when you're dealing with that stuff. But it's awesome to know that there are people out there, and really, really encourage everybody to put your feet on the ground, raise your voice, make yourself heard, educate yourself. I think, oh man, it's just such great advice. Education really, really is power. It's just like tools in your back pocket and helps you know and understand what those rights are and stuff. And, y'all have beautiful voices. Don't be afraid to, shout them loud and proud, because we all want to hear it. And I know that a lot of other individuals would benefit from hearing your voice. So that's why it's important to speak up and be proud.
That is well said. All three of you guys, that was great advice. Well said, Tom. And I actually have one other question for you guys real quick as we're wrapping. Do you guys just practice if people are just in Pennsylvania or in California because you have your office here? Or is it people anywhere, any state, if they contact you, can you still help them, especially if it's a class action type of thing?
Yeah, it's a great question. We actually practice all over the country as far as our disability practice goes. Yeah.
Okay, perfect. That's what I wanted to make sure that was clear and out there for everybody. So if you aren't in Pennsylvania, you can still get their help, get the
and their information is in the description of our video. There should be links to websites, contact information, and stuff like that. You guys can certainly check it out. I encourage you to do so if you feel like you need to.
Yes, definitely do so.
Thank you, Annie. You guys are awesome. This has been a super cool talk, and I'm excited. So just thank you for being here today on Live to Roll. We really, really appreciate it. And thanks for sharing such awesome information.
Yeah, we really do appreciate that. That was honestly one of the coolest shows I think we've done, and just because that information is so important to people, and it helps so many people. So thank you guys. We do appreciate you. And then thank you everybody in the chat. Thank you guys for the questions. Thanks for watching, and make sure to tune in to Tom tomorrow for some gaming. Live to roll, everybody.